Okay, welcome to round 2 with Enduring Ideal. And I was okay keeping this hand on the draw. We have 17 outs, 17 white sources in our deck, which is fine to draw to, especially because we're also making land drops in the meantime, getting to our big spell. And it's obviously just right there on top. There's going to be a little bit of a doing nothing this match at some points. Not quite yet. We're about to get Tassigered. And here I make a decision on what I'm going to do about that. I'm going to end up Fury Nodesing it. I'll take the first hit for 4, and the logic there is that I'd rather not just leave an Oblivion Ring on the battlefield to get like Cryptic Commanded into Tasker activation if things start cascading out of control, or like Cryptic Commanded into like countered. I didn't want to immediately hide a Tasker under that. I'd much rather, use my nodes and take it out. And I fire off an aggressive Runed Halo here, just to get somewhere for my Nykthos. I think Snapcaster Mage is a pretty solid name. My opponent's just going to have 4 of that card in their deck. It's also the card that can like chip shot me through sorcery speed removal the best. Just kind of committing to the battlefield. My opponent doesn't really have answers. Also, just like, if they're going to counter something, I don't really want to wait a million turns to play around Mana Leak or whatever. I can do that if they like play the Mana Leak. I can then decide later to not lose to like Snapcaster Mana Leak, but as is, I'd rather just start sticking stuff. That was a pretty basic discard. We have 2 action spells, a generic extra land. We're going to make a million mana with Nykthos. It's fine. And now we're priced into using this removal spell. Playing the Nykthos over the plains in case we get Kolagons commanded and have to discard the plains. And now here, I'm fine with exposing myself to the Kolagons commands. It's been exiled, they can't Snapcaster Mage it. I'm fine with exposing myself to another one because this explicitly plays around Mana Leak and shuts off my opponent's known threat. I don't just want to run my Enduring Ideal into 2 untapped mana. That's just me checking how much mana I'm generating. Once I hit 10 is when I would like to fire the Enduring Ideal, because if I get rematted, I'll just cast it again. I'm okay with that. And the reason I don't cast one of these here is that my concern is that they're going to get into a position where they can just like Mana Leak or whatever. I'd rather use a single Enduring Ideal to handle that. We're also just like super buffered on life thanks to Phyrexian on life here. I didn't really predict Spell Snare. If I had thought about it, I guess there's a chance that I would... I don't think there's a chance I would not have cast into that spell. Oh, look, we've established a really hard lock, and our opponent's not doing anything. And here we have enough to... Let me just watch myself dance through this. So we Enduring Ideal through Mana Leak. Immediately find Dovescape to shut off like a Cryptic Command or any counter spells on future copies. It looks like our opponent just had nothing, and they have lost the game at this point. So moving to Sideboarding, I left in Porphyry Nodes to kind of mop up random tokens and everything. I left in 1 Great Oromancy to protect against Cryptic Command, even though it's low odds. My opponent has a ton of ways to interact with artifact or with enchantments in their, red, blue, black deck. I cut down on Leyline of Sanctity because I predicted my opponent's deck would have counter magic and not discard. And this card would not be the greatest, but I still have 1 as a way to, just randomly having 1 to protect against burn spells is fine. I cut the Prison Term and the Heliod. I'm not huge on either of those cards here. They don't really carry a lot of weight. I left in the where is it? The Luminarch Ascension. I think it is very possible against like a counterspell deck that you just land this card and it takes care of the game. I boarded in the cards that are good against counter magic and the cards that are good against Delve / Snapcaster Mage. I think that 2 Rest in Peace may have been overkill, and it's possible I wanted 2 ley lines here, but I'm not 100% sure. Also, I want all of the protective spells against Young Pyromancer here. And Nevermore is always fine, naming Cryptic Command. There's a little less than I think I want for this matchup as is, but this is fine given the list. So welcome to game 2 against Grixis Control. And this hand's fine. I'm going to resolve a defense grid, or at least that's my goal. Playing the planes so I can, I guess it's kind of weird. Like, my goal is to path a Young Pyromancer, but also then Suppression Field or something. I guess I path a Pyro and then I get to play Grid, which is like a reasonable start. It's just like this interaction's kind of weird where you're giving the mana, but Field's goal is to shut down their mana. It's a lot like Path to Exile Blood Moon. I lead on Field to beta Counterspell because the card I actually want to protect is Defense Grid, which is going to protect my bigger spells. And if the Suppression Field gets mana leaked, it's fine. It's going to go dead if I like hold on to it and try to protect it later anyways. So my opponent plays a creature. I draw the very lucky land there to play Defense Grid and punish them. And this is a case where I'm going to take the hit and use nodes as opposed to pathing and putting my opponent up mana into Defense Grid where they can actually pay to play a counter spell. But also just I'd rather hold on to the path to protect against an instant speed creature or something I specifically need to kill like a Young Pyromancer. It cost me maybe 2 life in the end over casting nodes after they play a different creature. Again, getting very lucky. Sadly, a couple Delvers, that would be a reasonable thing to put Fairy Nodes away. We scryed a land to the bottom because we already have a ton of mana. I could have held the Rest in Peace as a way to protect my cards from Kolaghan's Command, but I wasn't huge on it. Unfortunately, we just get double Insectile Aberration, so we don't have a ton of margin to work with this game. And I can't cast Path. I waited on Path because if these didn't flip, I didn't want to have to use the Path on one because I'm going to lock him out with Sphere. But because they did flip, I'm a little punished, and I can't cast the Path there because Defense Grid is not unilateral. It makes your spells cost more to cast on their turn. Also, this art is just great. That's some classic Urza's era art going on there. Some classic preview card resizing going on here. I think that holding the Path to Exile is correct, but you can't expect your opponent to flip on that turn. I was okay with my opponent using all of their mana there, especially because I'm going to start layering things. I can also regain life with Peace of Mind. Protecting myself from the burn spells, not actually from the on the battlefield threats. Obviously, I'm responding to their burn spells so that if they have like some other random burn spell they didn't account for that instant speed, they can't respond. And I don't actually know if I needed to fire that off right there. It's possible I didn't need to discard the Path, but I'm relying on just all the lock pieces to keep my opponent out of the game for a little longer. Misfail back one of the relevant spells, and now we're 1 mana off of Enduring Ideal. And we miss our window and draw probably one of the worst cards in the deck to draw. Gaining life on main phase and returning that so we don't randomly get surgical off the top or whatever. I guess we get a little punished by Kolaghan's command there. By a little, I mean very. So I guess it's possible I should have just waited and not like try to play around random burn spell. Yeah, I think that's where I punted this game, was activating Peace of Mind on my main phase there. I think I could have waited. Also, Engineered Explosives is really good against this deck. And at this point, we're dead with nothing to do. Just like being able to clear all of our Ghostly Prisons or all of our Ruined Halos is kind of obnoxious. Yeah, the punt was definitely not playing around Kolaghan's command on the turn I discarded the Form of the Dragon. Because with the Ruined Halo, there's not really any way for our opponent to Lightning Bolt us out that we can't play around. I played around the wrong thing. I played around like random other stuff when there's just a card that I had played around on and off over the course of the match that I should have considered. Okay, welcome to Game 3 against Grixis. Perfectly reasonable hand. Opponent Gitaxian probes themselves. And now we've got like a little bit of an awkward scenario. So with Ruined Halo, I can't just upfront cast it because if I name Insectile Aberration, then my opponent just keeps around the Delver of Secrets, chooses not to reveal anything ever, and uses it as Fugitive Wizard. So I want to wait until it transforms. And then at that point, I can then name Insectile Aberration, which I do right here. And now they're locked out of their Delver. I hold Nykthos there to kind of just prevent them from knowing how much mana I have in my hand. Like right now, if I can like draw Enduring Idea, cast Nykthos, and just Enduring Idea out of nowhere, but my opponent doesn't know that. This is definitely a case of, you're not casting the card. It's about the same whether I cast Nykthos there or not. Actually, it's possible they have like a Molten Rain or something nonsensical like that. So maybe I actively don't want to. Also, this in-hand Form of the Dragon is just the most embarrassing thing still. That might be like a reason for Peace of Mind. Just to like accelerate getting that card into the graveyard so you can then Mistveil Plains it. Also worth noting, you can Flagstones for Mistveil Plains. Killing the Young Pyro immediately so it doesn't get even more out of control. So there's just a little more action going on with the number of turns I get with the Unlife. Keeping the Sphere of Safety is fairly obvious here. Again, it extends the number of turns I get to take by a lot. My opponent actually concedes there, and I think I was probably losing that game if my opponent was not going to clock out. I think this is a case of the way your hate cards line up. It's not actually like the hardest, like the fastest hard lock. So I think that that's something that might want to be addressed in future iterations of this deck, is figuring out, I don't know if it can be done with hate cards, but figuring out the right way to really establish yourself on the battlefield to give you enough time to really just go through your deck and eventually combo.